This was a surprisingly eventful episode of My Hero Academia. Not only did we get La Brava as well as Gentle, we got a decent amount of content to really flesh out those YouTuber villains. We had some great Bakugo content really flexing how far he's come and how much he's actually matured, but still is that Bakugo that we know and love. Of course, we have the general kind of slice of life, trying to get ready for the band and pretty much picking who's gonna be the decorations, basically, who's gonna play the instruments, or who's going to be more on the general dancing side and things like that. But then you also get the training moment with Deku as well as All Might, and you just kind of think to yourself, in a lot of ways, this episode felt like a grab bag, where they had 4 big ideas, they put it into one bag and said, that's going to be our episode. And that can generally fall flat on its face, but I think for the style of arc that this clearly is going for, it just felt like every time we were focusing on a new idea of the episode, it still felt like it could be the start of the episode by itself. I mean, you had so much Minato content by himself that just, in a lot of ways, stole the show, and that was just such a small aspect to this episode. I mean, I'm really liking the idea for this arc. After so much heaviness and just kind of turmoil, the idea of our villains for this arc is going to be people trying to make a viral video, basically. And then you have the internal struggles and trying to overcome and compensate for your own shortcomings, so what's happened in previous arcs won't happen again. I think that's like the perfect way to wrap up this season of My Hero Academia and show us something not only we haven't seen before, but allow them to prepare and better themselves for the next true giant threat that could be a life or death situation and things like that. La Brava as well as Gentle, I'm really enjoying. I mean, obviously they're still pretty new. I don't have experience with the manga, so I can't really go off of too much other than what we've seen so far, but I do think the idea of like a social media craze for an antagonist is a good idea, because it's only getting recent that we're starting to see more and more like superhero stories take the idea of the modern age and the modern technology and actually explore that with a superhero story. Back in the day, the ideas of secret identities and things like that was very common because there wasn't a cell phone or a camera at every which angle, so it was very easy for a character to put on a pair of glasses or, you know, climb out of their window and swing around the city and not have people raise an eye because there wasn't a constant monitoring. It's now getting a little more common to kind of explore that, but it's nice to have a modern day superhero story not only explore the idea of superheroes and the identities, but also the idea that some people would be clout chasers, literally just trying to make the big thing to say, I'm important too, look at me, look at me. And I think that's a really interesting idea, especially because you have La Brava just so in awe of Gentle, being like, oh man, you know, your account got deleted, so I'm re-uploading it all again, and oh man, your first video was so great. It's like, it's such a basic idea, but if we really were, if like somehow our society just randomly got like 20 superheroes, I kind of feel like there would be some supervillains rising to the occasion being like, I'm going to be a YouTube sensation all about torturing and kind of bringing about chaos. And the idea that what he's going for up to this point, it is very minor crimes. I mean, ooh, they were selling expired pudding and things like that, and, you know, look what I did, I robbed them. But it's like gonna think you're an idiot, be like, oh, who cares about this guy, he's a loser. But La Brava, yeah, that's something right there, as the social media comments are saying. But it is interesting to see the idea of so much failure and like the idea of the hero killer and the League of Villains, things like that, and saying, okay, they're going to have an event, we're going to go crash that. I think that's a good idea for a villain arc, I have to say. I think there's a lot of possibility for fun comedy, ridiculous banter, and honestly some badass scenes depending on how their abilities kind of compensate with the other. I think just the idea of starting off the episode really showing 2 antagonists that we have never seen. I mean, especially compared to Hero Killer or League of Villains. I mean, Overhaul, right? The Yakuza, like, there's a lot of really bad things that we've dealt with in My Hero Academia, even recently. So to have a character who is just so, he's a gentleman, and then you got this girl, and it just feels so perfect and wholesome, while also knowing that they probably deserve a smack or two. And I'm excited. I can understand why this is some people's favorite group of antagonists and villains, because they are so different than anything we've seen and probably will ever see again in My Hero Academia. Will they succeed? Probably not, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to seeing how long they can keep the ball moving before they get caught or give up or something like that, because it's going to be really fun, I have to say. I really enjoyed that entire first little chunk there. I mean, I could have had an entire episode of them making YouTube videos, and that would have been a great episode in my honest opinion, because you can't deny how great the voice actors are going in and how they're just delivering these personalities. They feel so memorable, so wholesome, so a little bit of twisted, but more so you just kind of like roll your eyes and laugh at them, not really fear them. but who knows, maybe they will invoke fear one day within us. So I enjoyed that content for sure, but I gotta say, Bakugo, he's not someone to scoff at either. I mean, he had some great content this episode. Of course, there was some moments where basically he played the drums and he's like, ha, look at me, you thought the drums were hard? I'm amazing. So of course that content was of course in Bakugo's way of thinking. But I like the idea that he's someone who's been kidnapped. He's someone who's been in a very bad situation at multiple points, and the entire school looks down upon their class. Or at least a good amount, that they can walk by and just have side comments be made about how it's all their fault and how basically their way of life has been ruined. And you can understand, I feel like a lot of the characters in our main central cast would probably be doing the same thing had they been on the opposite end of the spectrum. But still, it's interesting how pretty much everyone in this class is pretty much trying to bring about a positive energy for the school because they feel bad and, they just want to make sure everyone's in positive spirits. But then you have Bakugo, who's actually just pissed off. And I feel like I'd be in a similar situation, especially seen by him being kidnapped and his life's been put on the line. He didn't ask for this. He wasn't trying to get kidnapped. He wasn't trying to get these villains to basically just continue to crash down on their party and ruin it for others. So I like the idea that rather than him being like, I'm actually going to kill these people, he's going to kill them with music. Instead of just saying, we're trying to do this for them, no, we're going to kill them with killer beats. We're going to shred on the guitar. We're going to bash these drums in. I think that's it just is continuing to show how Bakugo is evolving as a character. He's taking into consideration Todoroki's feelings about abusive parents. He's taking into consideration how he's currently feeling, not just lashing out with anger, but actually lashing out in a way of drums, which is a great way to release some stress, bashing on some drums. I like how they're using that as actually a way to continue to flesh him out as a character, and I'm really happy to see that Bakugo isn't a one-trick pony who wasn't just going to be that foil in Deku's plan and was going to be, that antagonist for him, which in a lot of shonen shows, that's exactly what happens. He becomes an antagonist because he's jealous, but I actually like how he's growing as a character and he's feeling really important alongside all the focused characters that we definitely focus on throughout the anime. Obviously, he's not always relevant, but at the same time, with how many characters we have, it's impossible to keep every character relevant 24/7, but it feels like when we do focus back in on him, it definitely feels like he is maturing at a slow but very steady pace, which I'm definitely appreciating. And all the slice of life content that we got with this band I thought was amazing. I mean, I think Miditsa stole the show in that department. I mean, this boy was ready to give up because he was criticizing his character design. He was like, damn these arms. Let's screw the festival. I want it to be over. And then he gets offered to have a harem in the dance portion and he lights right up. This boy is too horny for his own good. But I'm so glad they keep him in this story because it just kind of feels like he doesn't need to be dominating every single scene, but in the middle of a scene you're never expecting, they'll pop up the most Mineta designed scene and you're just like, thank God he is in this anime. Because without Mineta, I feel like it would be missing a level of comedy and absurdity that only a character like him can deliver, even though he may not be the most combat-oriented in comparison to like a Bakugo or a Deku. He definitely feels important in his own very unique and twisted way in this series, and I'm loving that he's getting some very killer lines because this is an arc all about the dance and the music and things like that, so it makes it just feel like he's so important and has relevant purposes to have points in this episode to really just shine and steal the show. As many of the characters do, it's nice to see just some highlight moments of people playing the instruments and just having their time to shine. I mean, we got a girl singing and pretty much lights up the entire world. It feels like they've never heard music before, just based on their reactions, the glowing aura. I mean, the song was great, don't get me wrong, but I love how overdramatic they made that moment to just see they were just lighting up and how other characters either got disappointed or even more inspired. I'm just loving that. I'm loving how this arc really feels like we can get back to that season 1 slice of life era, and I don't want that era to last forever, but it is nice to go back to that from time to time and say, these are students. They do have their time to decompress when they're not in the middle of a battlefield and villains are trying to cut off their head or steal their abilities or things like that. And I think that's why I'm really enjoying it. I think maybe if like every episode was an entire episode of them just playing the instruments or things like that, I'd be like, okay, My Hero Academia isn't a band anime. We don't need that for 5 episodes in a row. But it just has that nice sweet spot where 5 minutes, 8 minutes of the past couple of episodes, just having that downtime and planning, it makes it feel like they're fitting their age while also having some really adorable, hilarious, or a little bit more on the dramatic side moments to really make it feel like My Hero Academia has a lot of possibilities and ways to make these character interactions really feel memorable. I mean, just look at the Deku and All Might content. I've always liked how All Might has been training / kind of like pushing Deku away because he does need to learn on his own, But I like how it's not going the route that I thought it would, where it's just kind of like we were gonna ignore this. But he's like, no, like, he's almost died, right? He's almost died on multiple occasions. I think it's okay to give him a more obvious push on how he should use his ability, which they could have easily ignored, and a lot of people would have just forgot about it unless they immediately rewatched the anime. But it's like, there is definitely a lot that All Might could teach Deku to help him, and I mean, look at what he just fought up against. If Eri wasn't there, not only would he have been defeated, he probably would have died, right? So I'm liking how he's starting to actually give him that obvious nudge, being like, okay, try doing this. You know, you gotta start thinking in this way. Do this or do that. And I like the idea of something that I wasn't even thinking. I'm sure pretty much everyone would make the same mistake. If you have this ability that you can just kind of like put throughout all your body, I don't think many people would think of like controlling it in a certain way and then releasing it upon impact fully like that. And it's so interesting to see how Deku, even though he definitely did it by the end of the episode, on his first try, his hand was trembling, and there's going to be a lot of struggle, and, you know, he's going to have to train for a while to be able to master it in such a way. But still, we're seeing the potential of where his quirk can go. That his quirk has been interesting, and he's kind of been applying it in his own unique way. That's not All Might, but also similar to All Might on the process. So I'm interested to see how, once he starts really mastering this new combination of how he can use his abilities, what he'll look like on the battlefield, especially when he goes up against Gentle and Labrava, or just the next really big antagonist. I think there's a lot of ways to really flesh out his abilities and just make him an even more important and menacing protagonist, but also having his own flaws that he'll continue to have to overcome, which I've been enjoying about Deku. I like how he's not just perfect and can master his abilities. I feel like it's going to take him until the end of the series to truly be an All Might style character, but I like how still with each arc we're still feeling like he's a badass and still is inspiring us, like he's even inspiring some of the other characters in the show, and that's why episodes like these continue to really impress me. They're fun. They're exhilarating at times, but most importantly, they have a lot of different ideas that they're rolling with, and it makes a kind of slice of life band arc like this all the more interesting. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, be it from manga readers, anime originals. What did you think of this very entertaining episode of My Hero Academia? Do let me know. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you're happy new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.